Michiko Kakutani, one of the toughest book reviewers at the New York Times, starts her review of Keith Richards' new book, his memoir entitled Life. For legions of Rolling Stone fans, Keith Richards is not only the heart and soul of the world's greatest rock and roll band, he's also the very avatar of rebellion, the desperado, the buccaneer, the poète maudit, the soul survivor and main offender, the torn and frayed outlaw, and the coolest dude on the planet. Named both number one on the rock stars most likely to die list, and the one life form beside the cockroach capable of surviving nuclear war. Keith Richards writes about the consequences of fame, the nearly complete loss of privacy, and the weirdness of being mythologized by fans as a sort of folk hero renegade. In his memoir, Keith Richards writes, "I can untie the threads of how much I played up to the part that was written for me."
You've written very eloquently in the book about growing up in England after the war and a kind of childhood that I think is different from the childhood that even many Americans had.
Basically, we were a bit on the front line. You know, there was rubble everywhere. Being so young, I was not aware that there was any other world apart from bombed out ruins. It was only slowly I realized that this was not supposed to be the normal state of things. To me, of course, my age, rock and roll was turned the world from black and white into technicolor, just like that. And suddenly everything became possible. I listened growing to American music, jazz basically, you know, Sarah Vaughan, Ella Fitzgerald. The force and power of American music has probably been the most underrated or unrecognized forces that have come out of this country. And I couldn't wait to get here.
I wonder if you could talk about the first time you met Bo Diddley or Muddy Waters or John Lee Hooker.
I think what struck me about all of those guys was their incredible humility and their way that they took you into their hearts. It was almost like long lost brothers. All we wanted to do was to turn other people on to those guys. It was just this idealistic sense of that everybody should hear this music, and since they're not going to hear the real guys, we'll do second best. But it was evangelical almost. You know?
As that was happening, you know, really for the first time, you know, the idea that rock and roll was kind of an English thing. I wonder what that looked like from your vantage.
None of us expected what happened to happen. I mean, even to get to the States, dream about it, pal.
That period from, say, 68 to 72, it was an amazing run for the Rolling Stones. Beggar's Banquet and Sticky Fingers and Let It Bleed and Exile on Main Street. And it's always seemed to me that there was something about that transition and that chaos that you guys fed on creatively.
Probably not consciously. I mean, you can get caught up when there's such a large change and drift of feelings. And in a way, what can you do except mirror or express what you're hearing around you? That's basically what a musician does, try and calm everybody down a little, or try to put certain thoughts into music and to crystallize them.
The one thing that always seemed to me to distinguish the Rolling Stones from many other bands, obviously, is performance.
There's an aspect about going on stage that it's always exciting because you don't know what's going to happen next. You only get one take. It's not like making records. You know, once you're on, it's full steam ahead. You know, from my point of view on stage, and trying to keep the whole band together, I have to make sure that Mick's supported wherever he goes in the room so that he feels totally, totally confident, even if it means switching beats and rhythms. It depends on the weather and things like that, which you can't have any control over. But at least he'd know that I'm there behind him, leading the way. This is why I never got bored doing this stuff. Because take the Stones on stage, 1963 or now, it's still that same sense of adventure. You don't want everything to be rote. That's the antithesis of rock and roll.
I wonder if you could talk about songwriting a little bit.
I've never really written by myself. I've never really liked to do anything by myself, except sleep. Everything else I've done is a joy of collaboration. Virtuoso I'm not, and I never intended to be and wanted to be, but I'm very interested in playing something off against the other guy. As Ronnie Wood and I call it, the ancient form of weaving. You can't tell where the needle went in or where it came out, and it's a different thread. And after all of these years, it'd be very difficult to separate myself from the Stones in any coherent form. You know, when I say I usually mean we.
One of the things you tangle with is a sense of image.
Sometimes you feel like you're a little out of sync with the image. You know? It's 30 years since I was a junkie, you know. I mean, I still carry that ball and chain. Fame is something you have to deal with. I've sort of grown into it. It's just part of the job. I mean, you know, you made me. and you've given this band of mine such support over the years. I couldn't turn tail on it now. So I'll be as famous as you like. You know?
Digital.